Good evening, race fans, and welcome back after a brief hiatus to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Here for season 1 of 2026. Crazy to think that this thing has been going for this long, but after our hiatus from broadcasting last season, it was none other than Mr. Garrett Hess taking home his fifth championship in the ASRC Oval Series, tying himself with Brian Sabelski for the most championships here in this series. Now, switching it up from the 1987 NASCAR Legends last season to doing a little bit of short track racing here in these super late model racing machines. Here tonight at the new Smyrna Speedway for a 200 lap event here at this half-mile track. That said, drivers are already making their way down to the starting grid, so how about we take a look down here at our starting lineup here tonight. Starting out on the pole here of this one, it's going to be the number 85 of Brian Sabelski here, running in what he calls the Super Miata here tonight, sponsored as always by Makoni Setup Shop. He put that Super Miata of his up on the pole here this evening to kick off season number 1 of 2026. How about his outside, though, in that number 7 machine, the greenest member of the field here tonight, but not quite a rookie anymore. Been here with the league for coming up on a year now in that Save RC's Foundation number 7. That's going to be none other than Mr. Kevin Alessia, rolling off position number 2. Back in third, though, going to be the 45 of Mark Kluge in that Motor Racing Network entry, followed by League Administrator Mr. Jason Gardner, rolling off position number 4 in that Gear Wrench number 93. Then back in fifth, in that green and purple CZ Robotics number 24, the driver out of Noonan, Georgia, that is going to be none other than Corey Logan, with the 188 Rowdy Energy entry of Joshua Rudolph, rounding out the tail end of this 6-car field. That's it, though. Green flag up in the air. We are going racing here at the new Smyrna Speedway. 200 laps the distance here tonight. And already a little bit loose off the corner, a little bit further back. That was the 45 of Mark Kluge, having a little bit of a wiggle going down into turns 1 and 2 there, but otherwise holding on to it pretty A-okay here. And just like that, lap number 1 already in the books here under the green flag, fortunately. Back in those 87 Legend cars, we saw some of these drivers have a little bit of difficulty wheeling those cars around the track. Everyone seemed a little bit hesitant to get into them at the start of the season, and very glad to be out of them by the tail end of things. But now going out into the short track realm here in these super late models, I'll tell you what, I have driven these cars a couple of times here on the iRacing.com service. They are very slippery, they are very slidey, they will do everything in their power to kick out from underneath you. So very good sign so far that all these drivers have managed to keep it pointed in the right direction here for this one. Right now, everybody's single filed out here. Closest battle on the speedway is this battle for second between Brian Sabelski and Kevin Alessia here. Brian, of course, running in that Miata of his. It looks like Kevin is running in a Toyota here, a little bit further back. I believe that's a Chevy down there that Jason Gardner is driving. Then we got Mark Kluge back here. You have to wait for him to come back around to get a look at that one. I think, I'm not sure. I don't see any manufacturer decals there on that 45 for Mark Kluge. And the same goes for Corey Logan. Both drivers running the same manufacturer regardless of what it is. Then we got another Toyota back here with that Rowdy Energy number 188 of Joshua Rudolph here. 7 laps in the books, though, all under the green flag here for the time being. So far, so good. But still a very long way left to go here in tonight's event. Of course, you see the lap count there. 200 laps the distance here tonight. Running a little bit longer races here this season from what the ASRC Oval Series drivers are typically used to. Back when we were short tracking it here in the past, pretty much was always 100 laps or 100 miles, whichever came first. Now there's a little bit more variety to it, a little bit more spice. Take a look down here at the schedule here for 2026 Season 1. 200 laps here, 200 laps at 5 flags following this in the actual 2026 calendar year, as we will be taking next week off for Christmas break. But going to be kicking things back off on January 5th at the 5 Flag Speedway. Another 200 laps over there. Then it'll end up being 250 laps at the Hickory Motor Speedway, 200 at Concord, 150 at Southern National. But I think the biggest one on here is going to be 300 laps at the Slinger Speedway. That should definitely be a fun one. That one's going to be on February 2nd. So still a way to go from here. A couple other notable ones on here I'm seeing. Looks like 200 lap championship at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. That ought to be a fun one. We have a driver having a little bit of trouble though. That's the 7 of Kevin Alessia. Got passed by Jason Gardner there. Looks like Kevin might have had a little bit of a scrape against the outside wall. We'll take a little bit of a further look back here. This is going down into turns 1 and 2, and sure enough, Kevin just washes up the track there a little bit, scrapes against the outside wall, and that's going to cost him the position for second place. Cutting back to the live camera here now, Brian Zabelski still leading the way. Jason Gardner a whole 2 seconds back. Then Kevin Alessia back in third, 1.3 seconds behind him. Then we got Mark Kluge a bit further back in that 45 machine. Then almost 3 seconds back, we do have a battle going on here for the 5th position as Joshua Rudolph slowly but surely beginning to reel in that CZ Robotics number 24, Corey Logan. Corey up high, Joshua down on the low side. Both drivers get a little bit loose there coming off the corner. Corey up in the outside wall. Rudolph checking up a little bit to keep that car underneath him, and you can see both those drivers' brakes glowing very bright inside of those wheel wells. They're both keeping it pointed in the right direction here. Corey still keeping up on that higher line here than Joshua is. We'll see how it plays out for him as they cross the line here. That time across the line, a 17.9, or no, an 18.44, excuse me, for Corey Logan, and 18.29 for Rudolph. So Rudolph slightly faster that time around the circuit. But these two do still seem to be fairly equally paced with each other here. So that inside line definitely, it seems like Joshua is making some small gains here. Just not quite incremental enough to really get around that 24 machine. Of course, this time as we update the lap times, 18.36 for Logan, 18.50 for Rudolph. That said, Rudolph is reeling in that 24. He had the nose down to the inside going through turns 1 and 2, just didn't have the run off the corner. And it seems like that's where the high line is really helping Corey out here, is just getting a better acceleration off the corner, not having to slow down quite as much to get that car to rotate. But I say that, and here comes Rudolph down to the bottom of the track, neck and neck, going through 3 and 4. Still side by side across the line, but Rudolph going to have just a little bit of a nose advantage here. Then head down through turns 1 and 2. We might just see that 188 clear the 24, but no, we will not. And sure enough, Rudolph going to take the position here for 5th. That's going to bump Corey Logan back down to the 6th position here. And already 22 laps in the books here. Brian Sabelski pulling away to a nearly 3-second lead over the rest of the field in that number 85 machine. He is just smooth sailing here tonight in that Super Miata machine. Running here for Marconi Setup Shop as he always does. Always great to see them on board here with the league. Of course, talking about people on board with the league, gotta give a big shout out to our friends over at SM Racing Products, who have been on board as the title sponsor of the ASRC Oval Series for years now. As always, if you're in the market for button boxes or any sort of other sim racing gear, give them a look-see over at sm-racingproducts.com. Also on all your favorite social media pages under that name. It started off as two guys that weren't quite happy with the button boxes they saw on display on the sim racing market, and they decided, you know what? why not just buy all the components and build one ourselves? And sure enough, that's exactly what they did, and now they're here making their own sim racing apparel and accessories from scratch here. And of course, a couple of these drivers have won button boxes from this group, and Brian Zabelski, I believe, actually is one of the drivers that has one. There's been nothing but good things here said by the drivers of the ASRC Oval Series. So again, that's sm-racingproducts.com. Be sure to go over there and give them a look-see and thank them for being on board here with the ASRC Oval Series for all these years. But as we ride around through the field here, everyone's pretty spread out right now. How about we take a look at how things went for 2025 Season 4, where we unfortunately weren't quite able to broadcast the league here. We'll take a look at the how the championship played out for some of these drivers here. Of course, Garrett Hess, who unfortunately is not present here tonight, was the driver that took home the championship last season. Gonna be championship number 5 for that driver here in the ASRC Oval Series, tying him with Mr. Brian Zabelski for most championships in the Oval Series. Garrett Hess brought home with 188 points to his name, 20 points ahead of Brian Zabelski, who brought it home in second in the season championship. 7 wins for Garrett Hess, 4 wins for Brian Zabelski. Both drivers with 10 top 5s. All in all, a very good run for both drivers. As I look down here at our screen here, it looks like Mark Kluge is starting to potentially make some moves here on that 7 machine of Kevin Alessia. This here being the battle for the 3rd position here. And again, looking fairly similar to that battle we saw between Joshua Rudolph and Corey Logan. The inside line doesn't quite have the run off the corner that the outside line does, but it seems like the overall lap times are still a little bit better. And Mark Kluge definitely trying to put the nose down there and take a little bit of a deeper line than Kevin is here. Currently the two divided by about 4/10 of a second. Call it roughly about 2 car lengths here. Coming across the line there, it was a 18-15 for Alessia, 18-31 for Kluge. So Kluge not quite having the advantage, it looks like. He's definitely slowly but surely reeling Alessia in. It's just not quite as much as it first looked like. Still hovering here at about half a second between the two of them. Closing in occasionally to about 3/10 of a second, but for the most part staying at half a second between these two drivers. Mark still trying to make that lower line work as Kevin runs a bit further up to the high side. Both drivers very equally matched here for the time being, but only 38 laps into this event out of 200. We still have a plenty long way left to go here tonight. All these drivers setting lap times in roughly the 18-second range, so 11 minutes into tonight's race. I mean, you do some math there. With some rough rounding here and there, I'd say, assuming no cautions, probably about 40-ish more minutes here in tonight's event, so definitely a long way left to go for these super late model drivers. And I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle here as we get into the later stages of this race, because the big thing to keep in mind here with this car, with it being one of the most powerful short track cars here on the iRacing.com platform, having the most torque of one of the the most torque out of the short track cars here on the iRacing.com platform. These tires are going to be getting chewed off very quickly, and they're going to have to stretch them a pretty long time here tonight to make those pit stops work out. So we'll just have to see who's best able to manage their tires here. And look further back, though, it looks like the 24 of Corey Logan has been lapped by Brian Zabelski here. But all drivers still running, no cautions, no incidents whatsoever so far. So all in all, been a pretty clean first quarter of this race. You can see a 93 of Jason Gardner starting to catch up here. And putting that 24 a little bit further down. A big change of the season too, as well, is caution laps will not be counting for 2026 Season 1. That's I believe, the first time here in the ASRC Oval Series that caution laps have not counted. But the big thing that affects is that there will be no lucky dogs here this season. So Corey Logan, unfortunately, is trapped a lap down now unless everyone were to come down pit lane and he were to be waved around the pace car. Otherwise, you're stuck a lap down. You're not going to be given a lap back whenever a caution flag comes out. So definitely a tricky spot to be in here. Like I said, still a long way left to go. We are just going to have to see how things play out for these drivers here tonight. Brian now looking to potentially overtake that 188 and put that driver a lap down here as well. Last time by an 18.08 for Sabelski, a 18.52 for Rudolph. So about half of a second a lap is the difference between these two. And sure enough, Rudolph's going to pull it on up and let that 85 of Sabelski go on by. So now a quarter of the way into tonight's event. That'll be leaving us with 4 cars still running here on the lead lap here tonight. As I was saying earlier, taking a look at these drivers' championship pictures here last season, back in 3rd in the championship points is Mr. Johnny Bell, who also unfortunately is not present here this evening. He finished just 19 points back from Brian Sabelski with 149 points to his name. Also 10 top 5s to his name in that season. Then back and forth, it's the driver that we were talking about being lapped just a little bit ago. Corey Logan brought it home in 4th last season in those NASCAR Next Gen cars. From what I understand, that is the main car that they drive in official online races here on the IceyToo.com platform, so it makes sense to see that that driver performs so well. 4th out of 17 competitors over the course of the 2025 Season 4 championship. That is season number 20. Going further down the list in our standings here, Jason Gardner get home 6th last season with 116 points to his name. That is about 14 points back from Corey Logan there. Jason had 5 top 5s to his name. All in all, not a bad season here. Then back in 8th was Kevin Alessia, only able to attend 4 races last season. So unfortunately, that number 7 machine not able to compete full time or for the majority of the season last season. So hopefully we'll be able to see Kevin out here more here in the 2026 racing season. Further back, Mark Kluge last season brought it home in the 13th position. Kluge unfortunately only able to start 3 races. Then Joshua Rudolph also brought it back in 10th for season number 20 with 3 race starts to his name. So a lot of the drivers here tonight, unfortunately, not able to compete full-time last season, but great to see them out here to kick off a brand new season and a brand new year at that of competition here with the ASRC Oval Series. A couple of our regulars did all say they're on their Christmas vacations already, so not able to make it out here tonight, but we should be hopefully seeing them all back out on the track when the new year rolls around. Like I said, next week going to be taking the night off for Christmas break. Then we will resume things on, I believe, January 5th, 2026 is when we will be getting back rolling underway for the final 10 races of the season. And that's not all uncommon to see here with the ASRC Oval Series. Most times in season 4 of the year. We will only do an 11 race season just to let everyone have Christmas and the New Year off from competition. But that also means one less opportunity to score points here, and that always has shown to have at least a little bit of implications on how the championship plays out for these drivers. But Brian Sabelski has led every single lap here tonight and is pulling even further away. He's got up to nearly a 6-second lead over Jason Gardner. That is nearly half the speedway now that Sabelski has pulled away from the rest of the field. He is just absolutely on a tear here tonight. Looking around the field here, Mark Kluge not quite in the danger zone here yet, but he's got about 7-ish seconds left to play with before he runs the risk of being put down a lap here as well. And you can see Corey Logan a little bit further back there with Brian Sabelski just at the back of the picture frame, call it about a third of the speedway between Sabelski and Logan, risking putting that 24CZ robotics machine down another lap. But even in that situation, every lap turn is another opportunity to gain a little bit more experience, get a little bit more seat time to take with you into the rest of the season in 2026 after our little break. So good to see these drivers still out here. Still a long way left to go here tonight. That said, while things are fairly calm and collected around the speedway, how about we take a moment here to ride on board with Mr. Brian Sabelski and get a bird's eye or a onboard view with our race leader here tonight. And as Sabelski crosses the line, 80 laps now in the books, all running under the green flag, all to the name of the driver of the number 85, Mr. Brian Sabelski, has led the way for every single lap, and he is showing no signs of stopping here, as he has gotten that lead up all the way to call it right about 9 seconds here. That is quite literally a half a speedway lead for that Super Miata. Back in second, Jason Gardner still doing a pretty solid job back here in second, the most improved driver on the speedway, and the only driver that has improved more than a single position, up +2 from where he qualified here in that 93 machine. Kevin Alessia and Mark Kluge both down a single spot. Joshua Rudolph also up +1 over Corey Logan here. Corey as well, currently now 4 laps down, made a stop down on lap number 70. Looks like tires, I think left side tires and fuel was the call for that number 24 machine. Going to be the only driver that has pitted so far, probably going for a 2-stop strategy here. I imagine everyone else probably just going to try and stretch it out and do a 1-stopper here. We'll just have to see. Coming in on the halfway point here, slowly but surely, getting ready to not quite hit the point of no return, but get into the closing chapters of tonight's race. No, excuse me, Sabelski here. Starting to catch up to that 45 of Mark Kluge. I only say probably maybe another 3, 4, if that, laps until we see the 45 of Mark Kluge be put down a lap here as well. As we continue to close in here on the halfway point, last time by an 18:01 for Sabelski and 18:27 for Kluge. Sure enough, Kluge is going to pull it up onto the top of the speedway, and that's going to allow Sabelski to be putting another driver a lap down here tonight. It may be too early to be making this sort of judgment call, but I'm almost curious if we might see one of the rare fabled events of the ASRC Oval Series where the race leader puts every single car on the track a lap down. We saw that almost happen back at the Five Flags Speedway many seasons ago, but the race leader ended up running out of gas on the final lap, so he wasn't able to take home that win. We also saw it nearly happen with Garrett Hess back in the mini stock for, I believe, season 16, I want to say, at the Charlotte Legends Roval. Put every single driver a lap down, with the exception of, I believe, Brian Sabelski. It was either Sabelski or Garrett Streets, one of the two, but he put every single car on the field a lap down, except for one, and he was honestly only a couple laps away from putting him a lap down here as well. So Sabelski, he might be on his way to make history as the first driver to put the entire field for real a lap down and keep it that way at the end of the race. I believe that's the first time it will have happened. I may be mistaken here on that. We have held a lot of races in the last 6 years of ASRC Oval Series competition, so I may be mistaken on that, but as far as my memory serves, I think this could very well be the first time. But of course, don't want me to jinx that either. Not even halfway in the race yet, so it's not exactly early enough to be making that sort of call, but it's just something to keep in the back of your mind here. It is something that is definitely possible. Now Kevin Alessia is only about 2 seconds away from being lapped here in that 7 machine. Brian is definitely making his way towards him here. You take a look on board of their rear view camera on Kevin Alessia's machine, and you can see just how close Sabelski is getting to him. Really only maybe 3 car lengths if we're being generous here. And again, looking at the lap times, Sabelski last time by in 18:13, Kevin last time by in 18:44. No, excuse me, in 18:03 for Sabelski, not in 18:13. And sure enough, just like that, Sabelski is going to sail on by and be putting another driver a lap down in that number 85 Super Miata machine. Look at that car go. Now it all just comes down to, will he be able to catch Jason Gardner? I'm willing to say yes. As we cross the line officially halfway through tonight's event, I definitely think it is possible to see this 85 catch up to Mr. Jason Gardner here. But it's going to be difficult. Gardner is the second fastest car on the track right now. Last time by in 18:08 for Sabelski and 18:2 for Jason Gardner. So Sabelski the fastest car of the two, but not quite of a substantial margin like he has been compared to all these other drivers. But you can see on the timing scoring tower, that is now up to an 11-second deficit. It's about 18 seconds a lap here to about 18.2, 18.3, depending on the driver. So 7 seconds just about dividing Gardner and Sabelski. We take a look here at the track map and see where everyone's running right now. Sabelski, your race leader in that 85. Gardner, that number 93 machine, heading down the back straightaway here. So less than half the speedway left dividing these two cars. Of course, there will eventually be pit stops for the field. That might shake things up a little bit here, but pace-wise, I definitely think if this race stays green, I think Sabelski will be able to catch up to Gardner here. I'll tell you what, this has been a very difficult car to drive. And of course, it's one I have a decent bit of experience driving here on the ASR, or not with the ASRC Oval Series, but here on the iRacing.com platform. So I can definitely say this car is a handful. It is not easy to drive whatsoever. Brian Sabelski is making it look like a breeze here, but as we look around the field, some of these other drivers have been a little bit squirrely with it. Especially in the early goings when everyone was on cold tires. Once they got up the top, things weren't so bad, but now we're already at the point where they have just completely worn down, and we're back to square one, where it is definitely not the most pleasant experience to be wheeling these cars around this speedway. Jason going to be going up high, going around that 24 of Corey Logan. Again, that position, or that is not a pass for position, excuse me. Kevin Alessia running back here in third, having a mostly quiet race. Kind of in a bit of a bubble by himself right now, but if he stays in that bubble, then that's basically a guaranteed podium finish for that 7 machine. And it's been a little while since we managed to get him up here in the broadcast booth with us. Last season, I don't think Kevin walked away with any podiums. I may be mistaken on that. Let me take a look here. Okay, he did have 1 podium to his name at the Phoenix Raceway last season, but of course we weren't broadcasting last season, so unfortunately not able to talk to the driver of that number 7 machine. That raises a good point. How about the rest of these drivers? How about Mr. Jason Gardner here? Jason last season had a best finish also of third. He brought home a third place finish at North Wilkesboro and at Daytona. So 2 podiums for the driver of the number 93 last season out of his 10 starts. Then Mr. Brian Sabelski, while we're talking about drivers currently running on the podium right now, Sabelski last season had 4 wins to his name. And it looks like, including those wins, every start but one was a podium. The only race he started that he did not get on the podium was North Wilkesboro Speedway with a 5th place finish. Otherwise, Sabelski won at Atlanta, won at Phoenix, 2nd place at Nashville Fairgrounds, won at Watkins Glen, 3rd place at Talladega, 3rd place at Martinsville, won at Darlington, 2nd at Richmond, and 2nd at Daytona. A very solid season for Mr. Brian Sabelski back for season number 20, which just goes to show how good of a season Garrett has had. Let's take a look here at Garrett's stats. Unfortunately, again, not present here tonight, but take a look back here. Garrett, 5th place finish at Atlanta, won at Nashville Fairgrounds, got a podium with a 3rd place finish at Watkins Glen International, won at Bristol, a 6th place finish at Talladega, which was his worst finish of the season, then another 3 wins in a row at Martinsville, Charlotte, and North Wilkesboro Speedways. 2nd place runner-up spot at Darlington behind Mr. Brian Sabelski. Then he won at Richmond and won it again at Daytona for a grand total of 7 wins to his name. Well, he's not here tonight. Hopefully we'll see that driver out here sometime soon here for season number 21. Always great to have him out here in the field. But take a look at that track map here. You can see the 85, you can see the number 93. The gap is narrowing between these 2 drivers. It's not even a full straightaway anymore. Gardner has a grand total of about 2.5, 3 seconds to play with here to avoid Mr. Brian Sabelski, putting him a lap down as well. Joshua Rudolph also has gone down a 2nd lap. Mark Kluge has gone down a 3rd lap. Corey Logan has gone down a 5th lap here. Very soon we will be at the point where everyone's on such different laps from each other that there won't be any opportunities to overtake each other without any sort of incidents or any sort of major mistakes down on pit lane. But we've seen crazier things in the Oval Series. We've seen drivers run out of gas in the last couple laps. We've seen drivers' tires go down in the last couple laps. We've seen all manner of unexpected incidents happen with 5 or 10 to go, and that just always completely kerfuffles the strategy for everyone. That's like I always say here when we're broadcasting these races, it's not over until it's over. There's always a little bit of an element of chaos in motorsports, and that's just something you kind of have to deal with. Unfortunately, Brian is a driver that has drawn the short end of the stick when it comes to luck very many times in the ASRC Oval Series, particularly with those spontaneous late race cautions. But he's going to be the second driver on this one-stop strategy to come down to pit lane. Mark Kluge came down back on lap 110, which is why he went the 2nd lap down. But Sabelski down on pit lane. Looks like they're going to be putting tires on that 85. Will he be going for 4? Yes, 4 tires is the call for Mr. Brian Sabelski on that Super Miata machine. Now we're seeing Kevin Alessia come down to pit lane here as well in that SRC's Foundation number 7. Sabelski's back on the track after a 23.77 pit stop. Let's see if Alessia's crew can't do anything better for him. We see the right sides going on. Will Alessia be taking 4 as well? They're not jacking the other side of the car up, so it looks like 2 tires is the call for Kevin Alessia. It looks like they're fixing a little bit of damage on that super late model machine here as well. Comes back out on the speedway with a 21.9 No, a 30-second pit stop for Kevin Alessia. So 2 tires plus the damage, that's going to be putting him slower on pit lane than Brian Sabelski. That is not going to be doing him any favors. Jason Gardner, though, is your race leader here for the time being, as he has not come down pit lane yet, so he will be picking up a bonus point for leading at least 1 lap here tonight. He is also missing the front bumper of that car, and I have no idea where it went, because I haven't seen this number 93 get into any sort of incident in the last 130 laps, so I have no idea where his front bumper's gone, but the marshals haven't thrown the caution for it, so hopefully it's in a better place now. We might just have to ask him if he ends up on the podium, what happened to that front bumper? I'm also curious to see if the crew is going to try and fix that damage or not, because if so, that is definitely going to be putting him in a rough spot to win this race. I mean, it doesn't quite seem to be hampering his speed here. I mean, he is currently a full second a lap slower than Brian Sabelski right now, but Sabelski is also on 133 lap newer tires than Gardner is, so that might be a bit of a bigger deal than the removed front bumper is, but we will just have to see as Gardner elects to stay out here for another lap. Sabelski setting his personal fastest lap of the race with a 14.49. The same goes for Kevin Alessia, who just set not only his personal fastest lap of the race, but the fastest overall lap of anybody for this race. A 17.47. Now the time to beat here. Sabelski's going to make his way around that 93 of Jason Gardner, though, and I imagine we're going to see Jason pitting this time by. Sure enough, a little bit slow off the corner. Alessia goes on by, and we see Jason Gardner head on down to pit lane. That leaves just Joshua Rudolph as the only driver who has not made a stop yet. As Gardner makes his way down to his pit box, we'll have to see how this stop goes for him. Jacking up the car, gonna be putting on right side tires here. Will we see him take lefts here as well? Yes, we will. 4 tire stop here for Jason Gardner, same as we saw with Sabelski. Alessia, the only one that seems to have taken 2 so far. Coming back out on the track, a 24.82 second pit stop, so again, slower than Sabelski's. It also sounded a little bit like that front bumper was dragging just a tad, which is not a promising thing to hear, but as he brings it back out on the track, it looks like he is getting up to speed here okay, and that car just in front of him, the 45 of Mark Kluge, this is a battle for position between the 45 and the 93. We'll see how the lap times clock in as they come across the line. 18.15 for Kluge. Nope, just got an update. 17.99 for Kluge, 17.84 for Gardner. This is the first time since the drop of the green flag that we have seen these drivers set lap times in the 17-second range. Right now, Kevin Alessia is still holding the title of the fastest car on track with that 17.47 after his pit stop. Jason just now setting his personal fastest lap of the race with the 17.59 as he dives down to the bottom and gets around that 45 of Mark Kluge. Mind you, there is a little bit of a tire difference here between the two. Mark Kluge pitted back on lap 110, Gardner on 135, so a 25 lap difference between those two tires. And with that overtake between Kluge and Gardner, that is the first on-track pass we have had since the battle between Corey Logan and Joshua Rudolph on lap number 20, 140 laps ago. That just goes to show how spread out this field has gotten, but pit stops always adding a little bit of drama, a little bit of excitement into the mix. Fortunately, nobody's been black flagged here tonight, which is always wonderful to see because we have seen in the past many drivers getting caught for speeding on pit lane, and here in the Oval Series, that has a tendency to be a race-ending penalty outright. So very glad to see that pretty much everyone's pit stops have been good. We have not yet seen Joshua Rudolph come down to pit lane, and Joshua's in the same boat where inexplicably his front bumper has fallen off the car. I have no idea where these front bumpers are going, but they sure are just kind of vanishing from the car. But Rudolph's going to bring it on down to pit lane as our final driver to make a pit stop here tonight. We might end up seeing that 24 of Corey Logan come back down for a second stop later on in the evening, but otherwise, this should be the end of the pit cycle here for everyone. Jacking up the right side of the car here, going to be putting right side tires on. Will we see left sides go on Rudolph's machine here as well? Looks like the answer is going to be yes. 4 tire stop here for Joshua Rudolph. And he's going to be coming out of pit lane with a 22.65 pit stop here tonight. Again, with the front bumper magically glued back onto that machine. Always great to see. So as our pit times shake out, it's a 23.77 for Brian's stop, a 24.82 for Gardner's stop, a 21.22 for Mark Kluge, a 30-second even stop for Alicia, a 22.65 for Rudolph, and then Corey, back when Corey pitted on lap number 70, was an 11.27 second stop. But as we cross the line here, now officially going to be 50 laps left to go here at the new Smyrna Speedway before we crown ourselves a winner here tonight. And sure enough, Brian Zabelski has managed to pull off lapping the entire field. Now it's just a matter of keeping it up there, having a smooth ride to the finish, making sure not to make any mistakes, minding his P's and Q's. As long as the caution doesn't come out, I think Zabelski has things more or less in the bag here this evening. Of course, as well, that's also barring the risk of mechanical failures or any other hiccups that are outside of that driver's control, but so far so good. With 85, or with 150 laps under the belt of the number 85. Once again, we're now starting to see drivers sink back into the 18-second range, roughly right about. We'll see how things come across the line for Zabelski, because it seems like he's on a pretty quick lap here. 17.9 for Zabelski, 17.99 for Gardner last time by, and Rudolph a 17.87. And that right now is your only driver setting laps in the 17-second range. Last time by, an 18.44 for Kluge, an 18.33 for Alicia, and 18.56 for Corey Logan. And as we take a look around the field, Gardner and Kluge are the only drivers right now who are even on the same lap as each other. And they have about a 7-second gap between the two of them. You can see the two on the timing and scoring board. Not quite half the speedway between the two of them, but roughly right around there. Coming in on roughly 40 to go here in these next couple laps, so the clock is definitely ticking down here, and now that all these pit stops are in the books, I think everyone's just kind of on their Sunday cruise here for the evening and seeing how things end up playing out for them here. Brian here on his way to potentially set that 24 of Corey Logan down another lap. As we ride on board with him here, you can see him catching up to that 24 machine. That will be putting Corey Logan 5 laps down. He was, I believe, 5 laps down earlier in the goings of things, and then made a lap back through the pit cycles, but this will put him back to being 5 laps down. Sure enough, Corey keeps it on up to the high side. Brian goes on by here, and that will be putting that number 24 machine back down another lap. Well, gonna be short tracking it all up here this season. As I mentioned earlier, next week heading on over to the Five Flags Speedway to kick off the 2026 calendar year. Then after that, we head on over to Hickory Motor Speedway for a 250 lap event. Then the Concord Speedway will be round number 4. That's going to be a 200 lapper, followed by 150 laps at the Southern National Motorsports Park on January 26th. Then we have our big 300 lap event at the Slinger Speedway February 2nd, followed by South Boston on February 9th. That's going to be another 200 lapper. February 16th, going to be 150 laps at the Lanier National Speedway. Then we head on up to Langley for 200 laps on February 23rd, followed by a 100 lapper at the Oxford Plains Speedway on March 2nd. Then finally, we crown off the end of the season with a 200 lap event on March 9th at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. Of course, as always, I mean, if you're tuning into this broadcast looking for a new league to compete in, the ASRC Oval Series is always looking for new competitors. The only requirement is to be a clean and respectful driver. But the season's still young. We've still got plenty of drop weeks in the back pocket for people who join later, people who aren't able to compete full time, and always excited to see new faces out here on the raceway. Zabelski now catching up to that 45 of Mark Kluge. That will be putting Kluge a second lap down once he makes this pass. Sure enough, getting the nose up there to the number 45, and imagine we're going to see Kluge keep it on up high and let him go by. Sure enough, that will put Kluge down a second lap here this evening and leave Mr. Jason Gardner the only driver that is only one lap down to Brian Zabelski here tonight. What a tear this driver has been on here this evening. And with every passing lap, that gap is only growing ever bigger. $169 laps in the books. Gonna be 30 to go next time by, and with these 18-second laps gonna be going by faster than you expected. Really call it probably just under 10 more minutes of racing here for these super late model drivers. And of course, we'll pull some of them up here into the broadcast booth with us, get some words with your top 3 finishers, get their thoughts on the season, and then we'll sign things off and take our Christmas break next Monday night and return on January 5th for the Five Flags 200. Now coming across the line here, Zabelski getting ready to put us on 25 to go as he starts to make his way up to the 188 of Joshua Rudolph, who looks like Rudolph is going to be making a second call to come down pit lane. This time he does have a front bumper on that car, which is always good to see. And actually, I'm lying to you. He's not making a scheduled pit stop. We've just gotten word that he has been given a penalty from race control. I'm not sure what for. I would imagine probably speeding on pit lane, because we are getting word it is an actual penalty. This isn't like a flat tire or a meatball flag at all. This is an actual penalty for the 188, but I'm not getting word from race control on what that penalty actually is. So we can only be able to assume here, race fans, but I think that this is a too fast entering. Very unfortunate to see for the driver of that 188 machine, though. He's already been put 7 laps down and counting here as Zabelski continues his way around the speedway. That might just be the end of the run here for that 188 machine? We will have to see. Now it's 22 laps left to go here at the new Smyrna Speedway. And I'll tell you what, they have absolutely flown by. And I'd imagine they have pretty quickly gone by for Sabelski. Just an evening, relaxing Monday night drive here in that Miata. After all, he is very well renowned for his driving skills in the original Production Car Cup Challenge cars. So the Miata and the Volkswagen Jetta were the two that he's most known for, and even today, still a very prolific driver of both cars. So it's only fair that he runs that manufacturer here in the Oval Series, and maybe bring some of that good fortune from the road courses here onto the ovals with him. With 20 laps left to go, we've got another driver down on pit lane. That's the 24 Corey Logan, and sure enough, looks like they are putting tires on that 24 machine. This is going to be a two-stop strategy for Corey. Joshua has had the black flag cleared, so they are no longer under penalty, but they are still setting down on pit lane. So I think Joshua has probably called it a night here with 18 laps left to go. Currently being scored 12 laps down, and again, that increment is only going up with every passing lap. Kevin Alessia here in a sudden battle for position here for the third spot with Mark Kluge. These two drivers are battling for position. I don't even know where this came from. They just suddenly were on top of each other. And sure enough, Kevin is going to make that pass side by side here with 16 laps to go. And he is going to work his way up to the third position. So these two drivers are going to be battling for the podium spot here for the remainder of this race with only 15 to go. But it looks like Alessia is pulling away pretty steadily here. Sure enough, Mark Kluge has already fallen back to a 2-second deficit between himself and Alessia, and 18-19 for Alessia last time by, and 18-7 for Kluge. So it looks like Kluge has definitely maybe scrubbed his tires off in these final couple laps. That's going to bump Alessia up into the third position. Now the big question, will he be able to hang on to it for these final 12 laps? Sabelski still just continuing his Sunday cruise. I don't think he'll be able to do it in the next 11 laps just because it's not enough time, but he has the pace that he could put Jason Gardner 2 laps down here as well if he had a little bit more time. But I don't think it's going to be enough. Last time by, an 18-11 for Sabelski and 18-7-6 for Gardner. So calling that about half a second a lap. The deficit here, 33 seconds. Doing some mental math here. So Sabelski needs to make up about 4 seconds on Gardner. At half a second a lap, 8 laps. He's right on the verge of being able to do it. He might just be able to make that pass on the white flag lap, but I don't think he's going to. I think Sabelski's probably just going to want to chill out and take home a basically guaranteed win at this point than try and make the risk and try and overtake Gardner with like 1 or 2 laps left to go. But still, If there was another 5, another 10 laps of this race, Sabelski would put the entire field, not just 1 lap down, but 2. And that would be a heck of a feat. But the big high five is up in the air. 5 more trips around the circuit for Brian Sabelski. And as we cross the line here, going to be an 18-13 for Sabelski and 18-4 for Gardner. So Sabelski is slowing down just a little bit. It's looking like he will not be able to put Gardner a second lap down like we were talking about, but still. Heck of a run here for that number 85 machine. That Super Miata of his really is certainly super. I mean, you see how close it is at this point. Gardner might actually be slowing down a little bit just to let Gardner or Sabelski get the feet done. But we will have to see. 2 laps left to go. Last time by Sabelski was half a second faster than Gardner. If it's going to happen, it's going to be close, and it's going to be on this final lap as the white flag goes up in the air. One more time around the circuit before we crown ourselves a winner here tonight, and Sabelski is on the tail of Jason Gardner. Will we see him put the entire field 2 laps down? Not quite going to be able to do it here. Regardless, though, coming across the finish line, Brian Sabelski takes home the first checkered flag of 2026. And it looks like Corey Logan might have had a little bit of an incident coming across the start-finish line here. So we're going to take a quick look back here and try and see what happened to that CZ Robotics 24 coming across the finish line. Little scrape against the wall. That's all it took to get the car loose, but fortunately able to save it. And since it's the end of the race, not going to matter to bring out a caution anyways. But sure enough, Brian Sabelski gets it done here at New Smyrna. He's going to be your first winner of the 2026 ASRC Oval Series racing season. What a run it has been for the driver of that number 85. But anyway, we're race fans. We will be back here in just a moment with some words with the top 3 finishers. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back here to the new Smyrna Speedway. Or I almost said 150, but no, 200 laps in the books here tonight. Zero caution flags. And up here in the booth with me, race winner Mr. Brian Sabelski. You led pretty much every single lap except for under the green flag pit stops, and you lapped the entire field except for one person twice. How are you feeling here tonight?
Uh, Feeling good. The good is good to take the old Super Miata out here for her first shakedown, and just the car felt good. Everything felt super nice. Even on the longer run there, just kind of watching those tires and just trying to make sure I didn't melt them. The wear was pretty even throughout, so just good setup, good everything. Uh, I think this is just the I think it's just the iRacing baseline. Jason will probably know more than I do, but yeah, it definitely was a race that felt good. I think I expected um I didn't quite expect to run away as much as I did there. I thought at some point I'd get reeled in because I felt like I was really burning tires up or something, and I guess not.
Yeah, you certainly stole the show here tonight. And obviously, I mean, we've seen you be a very dominant driver in this series before. You have 5 championships to your name in these last 5 years. But I think this is one of the best, most dominant performances we've seen out of you. So, are you feeling like it's the car, it's the track, or maybe there's just something good in the air here tonight? But what do you think made things work out for you here?
A little bit of both. I like the track. I don't have a lot of super late model experience, but a lot of it. I spent a lot of practice just trying to get tuned up and make sure I had a good understanding of how everything was really going to shake out as far as pace and everything like that. So I tried, try to get an idea of like how it was going to break and everything. So that's just kind of a lot of that. Was a lot of time was spent doing that.
Sure enough, certainly seemed to work out here for you this evening. Of course, your biggest rival out on the track of Mr. Garrett Hess wasn't able to make it out here tonight, but with how things went so far here this evening, how are you feeling about your prospects for the rest of this season?
Well, that's one of those things I think we got to wait and see. A lot of good people. Kevin gave me a scare there in qualifying. He's pretty quick. Jason's quick. Garrett's quick. We got some people. Hopefully, will be here next race who were pretty quick as well. So I definitely don't think it's one race is not indicative of how everything else is going to go this season. So stay tuned.
Sure enough, definitely a lot to be looking forward to here in the 2026 racing season. But of course, before I let you go and celebrate Mr. Sabelski, the microphone is all yours. Who do you want to thank for making things happen here tonight?
I want to thank the folks at Maconi Setup Shop, official setup shop in NASCAR. Glad to have them on board. Spec 5 World Tour. You may have noticed I'm running the Super Miata this season, and Spec 5 is usually where I'm at on Thursday nights. Help with that league. It's a MX5 road racing league, so a little bit different, but love to have them around on an appropriately themed car. Folks at Dragon Roast Coffee, as always, great people, local company. Love to support them. You know, Coupon code Neon Tiger, 10% off your order at dragonroast.coffee. SM Racing Products, Jeremy and Garrett have been great supporters of this league and of the folks in it for quite some time, and love to have them around and have them on board. And Denver Racing Social, of course, our local sim racing group, and maybe I've been thinking about it. Maybe one of these days I'll go hop in the big sim down there, and we'll have a race race on the big sim and see how that shakes out. But yeah, if you're in the Denver metro, be sure to check them out. Not just for the F1 races, but they do other events too. It's a great place to be. Um, and that's about it. Oh, and of course, Aid, thanks for broadcasting. Jason, thanks for doing everything with the league. You and Johnny, of course. And that's about it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming on out here tonight. Congratulations on the race win. And I won't be seeing you next week, but I will be seeing you the week
Yeah.
after at Five Flag Speedway.
Oh boy, that one's going to be fun. That's a tough track in these cars, even though this is kind of a thing that's meant for them. So we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out. How many people spin out of four?
Yes, sir. And finishing back here in position number 2 is going to be none other than the league administrator himself. We were just talking about him. It's Mr. Jason Gardner, bringing home position number 2 here tonight. Jason, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling exhausted. Even even though this race was a little over 200 well, excuse me, not, a little over an hour, which our previous races, our last season, that was roughly about what we were racing last season. It's 200 laps around here with this car. It feels almost like we just raced for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of driving this car here on the iRacing.com platform, and it is definitely a handful. I think it's probably one of the hardest short track cars short of the asphalt sprint car, but definitely a heck of a run to make it work here in second. How do you think you managed to pull it off?
I try. I just try to be somewhat consistent. I unfortunately did hit the wall a few times, but luckily I was able to keep it together just enough where I was able to hold it in second.
Sure enough, definitely a good way to start the season off points wise. Looking out for the rest of the calendar, how are you feeling about your general prospects here in 2026?
I, I feel pretty confident. I really actually love driving the super late model. Though it's been a minute since I've uh, raced it, so I am a bit rusty. But I'm hoping to the rest of the season I do actually get my pace back and hopefully give Brian a good run for his money the rest of the season.
Definitely sounds to me like we're going to be needing to keep an eye on you here for the rest of the season. But here for tonight, of course, a podium finish, a great way to start off 2026. Before I let you go and celebrate, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Gardner. Who you want to thank for making it all happen?
I'd like to thank you for broadcasting. We certainly did miss you last season. I also want to thank SM Racing Products. They've been a partner for ASRC Oval Series for the last few years. I also like to thank everybody out there watching and everybody else who raced today. Without y'all, none of this would be possible.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on the podium finish, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks over at Five Flag Speedway.
I look forward to seeing you as well.
And finishing back here in position number 3 in that Save RC's Foundation number 7 machine, that's going to be none other than Mr. Kevin Alacia. Kevin, how are you feeling here?
Just about the same as Jason. A little tired. It was definitely an endurance race. My arms are a little sore. Didn't have any caution, so no breaks in between. But I'm feeling really good. I'm actually enjoying this car a lot.
Yeah, I know you said that this car is pretty new to you, all things considered. Uh, Doing your practice beforehand and coming on out here, what sort of expectations did you set for yourself here for tonight's race?
I wanted to try to see if I can be really consistent because practicing with this car a little bit early in the week, it was hard to get um very pinpoint exactly how fast I wanted to be, and I would get really fast and then slow down a little bit and just kind of like getting closer to where I want to be in consistency. But towards the end of the race, I started to see myself really keeping that consistency, so I just need to put a little bit more laps in for this car.
For sure, definitely. I mean, you got a podium in your first race with it, so that's a pretty solid start, I'd say. How are you feeling about the remainder of the season going to some of these bigger and some of these even smaller tracks than this one?
I'm looking forward to it. It looks like a exciting track lineup, and definitely Five Flags is going to be an interesting one. I know I raced a couple different types of cars on that track, and it is definitely going to be a difficult one to get a hold of in this car.
Sure enough. Also, going through this race here tonight, I was talking a little bit about everyone's stats, and I noticed last season only able to make it out to 4 races. So are you feeling like you might have better chances of, if not running full time here this season, being able to make it out a little bit more?
For sure, that's the goal. I don't want to miss any more races. I'm just glad that didn't get called out to work tonight. Last couple times that I had to be on call, I got called out every single time. So hopefully it stays like that where I don't get called out on the nights that I am on call for Monday nights.
Fair enough. We definitely hope so too. It's always great to see you out here on the Speedway. Of course, before I let you go here tonight, the microphone is all yours. Who you want to thank for making this first podium finish at 2026 happen?
I want to thank you for broadcasting again because it's always nice to see you broadcasting, and the community as well. All the racers here really wouldn't be a race without people joining, and my wife always watching and supporting every race that I do. So it's always a good thing to have that support.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Great seeing you out on the track again. Congratulations on the podium finish, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks over at the Five Flag Speedway.
Can't wait.
You heard it here first, race fans. Your top 3 finishers here tonight: Brian Zabelski, Jason Gardner, and Kevin Alessia. Of course, those weren't your only 3 drivers here in tonight's event, so how about we take a look down here at our race results as they stand. Of course, these are unofficial, subject to change, but I really kind of doubt that they will be. Brian Zabelski takes home his first win of the season, followed by Jason Gardner back in second in that number 93 machine with Kevin Alessia rounding out the podium. Then back and forth, it's going to be the number 45 MRN entry of Mr. Mark Kluge with the CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan rounding out the top 5. Then back at the tail end of the field, that's going to be the 188 machine of Joshua Rudolph. That said, that's just about all we've got here tonight from the new Smyrna Speedway. So without further ado, thank you all for tuning in here this evening. Of course, be sure to tune in 2 weeks from now, same day, same time, Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern. And of course, always looking for new drivers here as well. Be sure to check out www.asrcracing.com and give our league a join. We are always looking for brand new people. That said, though, thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all next time. Have a good evening, race fans.